Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember Elovitz.
Aye.
Councilmember Connolly.
Aye.
Councilmember Sierra.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Bauman.
Aye.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, I just wanted to, I noticed when we're doing the investing process, let's see, statement of investment policy, we're still talking about Valley Oaks Bank on page 22, and I'm wondering if that shouldn't say Montecito Bank and Trust. I don't think they keep the name Valley Oaks, but if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. So just,
Let me take a look at this on page 22.
it's under safekeeping. Page 22.
Securities purchased or brokers will be held in third. Yeah, we don't have any that are held in any bank at this time. So this was, when this was printed, that's where we did hold them. So I'll have to check and see where would we hold safekeeping as far as if we had such securities.
I think Montecito has, I have a safe deposit box. You can get a safe deposit
At
box.
Montecito.
if that's what
So
you'd like.
we would select one that has safe deposit
Or if you're
boxes.
Rabobank.
As close,
If you have Rabobank, good.
the
That's
closer the better. So
And
that,
it's and it's local.
it's local. So
Okay.
we should change that to Rabobank then.
Okay. That be all right with everybody?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I would move for approval of agenda item 3.
Move to approve.
You want a second?
Oh, did he move to approve? I'll second that then,
And is that motion as amended?
as amended.
There
Thank you,
you go.
Steve.
Okay.
Who's on first?
You need a loose.
Just voice.
You're okay?
Voice is fine. All in
No one
favor?
objects. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I
Thank
don't
you,
know the motion
Carolyn.
seconded. Voice is fine.
Councilmember Sierra seconded. Okay, and then you had a voice vote. Yes.
We're ready for agenda item 7, Resolution 1607, Resolution City Council, City of Buellton, regarding the commitments to publishing a report required by the Central Coast Water Authorities, known as CCWA, Resolution 9202 and 9211. And Public Director Rose Hess will give us this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. Before you tonight is an item that we have on an annual basis. We bring this to council. This is a requirement, one of our obligations to the Central Coast Water Authority as part of our contract to obtain state water project water. This requirement is to annually report to the Central Coast Water Authority our short and long-term by 5 years, water plans to ensure that we're not overdrafting and we're using our water in the appropriate manner. So what you have is Resolution 16-07. Confirming this. Attachment 1 to the resolution is the standard form that we have brought back to council, identifying our water use for the previous year and our projections of use for the next 5 years. What is new this year is attachment 1. Let me get to that in my screen. Which is an annual water supply report. So this year I've provided this new document to you, so it's something that's more easy for the public and the community to digest as far as the city's water supply, situation. And it's particularly pertinent because we've been going through these periods of drought. We're trying to comply, and our message is always conserve, 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 because the state has a 25% requirement when we're trying to obtain and achieve. At the same time, we're not trying to instill a method of panic because we're trying to use our water efficiently and for our actual needs. We're not overproducing. Our water source is primarily groundwater, and you recall a few months back we entered into an agreement with San Ynez River Water Conservation District to start our groundwater management. implementation. So this is information's going to grow and continue, that we'll be able to better manage the groundwater system in the valley overall. Because, as you know, the groundwater covers a huge area, and Buellton's a small fingernail as far as what we're in coverage for. But all that information is in this groundwater report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, I do not have any speaker slips for this item.
Just open the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Public hearing is now open. Public hearing is now closed. Thank you. We have a willing participant for action on this item.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Rose, I want to thank you, first of all. It was very complete, very thorough. That's why you have no questions. It was actually easy to understand. Thank you very much.
Comprehensive.
welcome.
With that, I move to adopt Resolution Number 1607, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California regarding the commitments and publishing the report required by Central Coast Water Authority, Resolution Numbers 9202 and 9211.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. If you're ready for the roll.
Councilmember Sierra.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bauman.
Aye.
Councilmember Connolly.
Aye.
Councilmember Elements. And Mayor Andrusik.
Aye. Thank you also, Rose. Agenda item 8, resolution number 16-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton rescinding resolution 15-26 that approved a mitigated negative declaration, 15 MND 01, and mitigation monitoring and reporting programs for the Live Oak Lanes project, and rescinding resolution 1527 that approved a final development plan 13 FDP 03 or 03, lot line adjustment 13 LLA 02, and conditional use permit 13 CUP 02 for the Live Oak Lane project located at 39 and 41 Industrial Way, assessors parcel numbers 099-690-045 and 099-690-046. We will hear from Mr. Brzezinski on this, if there's any left to be said.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, you've had a mouthful there. But at your January 28th public hearing, the City Council adopted the resolutions 1526 and 1527 approving the project and denying the appeals. On April 25th of this year, the project applicant submitted a letter requesting that the City Council withdraw approval of the project. Based on this request, staff has brought forward Resolution 16-13 rescinding the project approvals that occurred on January 28th, and approval of this resolution will terminate all project entitlements on the subject property. Staff is available to answer any questions, and it is a public hearing
With
as
that,
well.
we will open the public hearing. I still do not have any speaker slips for item 8. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to item 8? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and ask for action on agenda item 8.
I'd move that we adopt Resolution 16-13 and terminate all project elements of the subject property.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. If you will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Elements.
Aye.
Councilmember Sierra.
Aye.
Councilmember Connolly.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bauman.
Aye.
Mayor Andrusik.
Aye. Thank you. Agenda item, well, we're at council member comments. Excuse me. Do we have any council members that would like to make comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Bowman.
Today there was a lot of discussion on Facebook regarding the flags on the avenue, that apparently the lights haven't been working for at least a few days, and the flags are still up at night with no lights on them, and people were pretty upset by that. And I guess they had said also that it's sort of an ongoing problem, that over the years this has come up before. there were some suggestions about making a regular routine of taking the flags down or having some way to double check that to make sure that the flags are not left up at night with no lights.
We will look into it. This is the first I've heard that the flag lights were not on.
Yeah, nobody submitted anything to the city on that request, and if they did, we would have addressed it.
Okay, yeah, there was
But
quite a
thank you.
few people participating in that conversation, so we should definitely look into that.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's a good time to mention that the city does have a mobile app. It's basically the city site, but in mobile use, and anybody could easily put a report in there. So at the same time they were making comments,
Good point.
that would have been helpful for
Actually,
the
one of the comments was that they submitted a letter to the city council. I never saw the letter other than on Facebook, so I don't...
Yeah, nothing,
Is the app working?
yes,
No, okay.
yes,
All right,
but nothing came across
I'll provide
as
some
far as a
feedback to
letter.
those people, at least using that forum, and if we can look into it, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, just a quick, even just a quick email instead of a Facebook post, just do an email to our standard
Yeah, they
address.
indicated that they did, but of course...
Yeah.
Over the years, I've observed that the lights lose a little direction. And it was always my understanding, and Rose, I don't know if staff adjusts those. I thought PG&E would take care of focusing those lights because of their height.
The flag light, the lights that's directed to the flags
Yes.
is controlled by the city, but it's fixed. It's not something
Right,
that,
I know it's an adjustment. but-
swivels. So,
Yeah, it's separate now.
right.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if PG&E might offer that service.
No, they will not, because not for these lights.
I'll check them out on the way home tonight and let you know if that's the case, to confirm it.
Okay. Any other?
I have
All
a
right.
couple.
Ms. Sierra?
First of all, since I got home, I've been walking my dog a lot. There's the weeds on the sidewalk. Is that Valley Gardener's responsibility?
246.
Weeds on the
Caltrans.
sidewalks?
In general sidewalks by adjacent to
like
people's homes.
going up Valley Dairy in the middle of the sidewalk. There's
The residential streets and a lot of the industrial roads, it's the responsibility of the business or the homeowner
The residents keep
adjacent
the sidewalk
to it.
clean.
Right, and it's, in their frontage. The only
Okay.
areas that the city takes care of is like on Highway 246,
Okay.
Avenue Flags,
I was just
and
curious.
more
'cause
general
I
areas.
noticed that there was, I'll have to let people know they need to pull those weeds.
And I would suggest maybe the next buzz, you can put that in as well.
Great idea, thank you. The other one is, I had a resident complain about, somebody's building an RV spot at 150 Sharon Place. They're not quite sure it meets code. It's right on a corner, and it's going to make turning in,
We've investigated it, it meets code.
it does meet code.
Mayor Andrusik will remember the RV ordinance that went into effect back in 2007, and a 3-2 vote allowed on a concrete pad or any surface to have RVs parked in the front setback and the side yard setback.
Okay,
And we've checked, and it does not interfere with sight distance.
okay, thank you. I'll let that resident know. I know
And
we don't
we've
have a
received
code.
that as well.
Same resident, I bet,
Yes,
too.
and we've addressed and brought that to their attention, and we're monitoring it, and if it does become a sight distance issue, we'll take care of it. But the gentleman has the code and is building it per what our
Per code.
regulations are.
Okay. And just one more, I wanted to give you a copy of this too, Mark. The Visit Santa Ynez that we give our money to is doing they're part of a tourism field trip to New Orleans, and I just wanted council members to look. They give descriptions of the different communities, and Buellton is, first of all, known as Gateway to Santa Ynez Valley, from lodging and groceries to service station and shops. Visitors will find everything they need. The other communities are all rustic and charming, and I just think if we're going to be giving these groups money, that it would be nice if they actually made Buellton sound like a place that tourists would want to come to.
Yeah, good for you.
Just
What a novel
I
idea.
agree.
something to think about when a contract comes up. So,
Yeah, it looks kind of like a stopover here,
yeah.
When we talked about
Yeah.
the,
maybe written 15 years ago. That's what it looks like.
I mean,
How much money are they projected to get this year from the hotels, approximately?
Did they get $250 a room?
Is this the T-bid? So that's
Yes.
the T-bid, so that's $250 per room. So the, the hotel, tenants or residents of the hotel pay it, and so we end up getting it, so it's a
Right.
pass-through.
Right.
It's not really our money, so it's the
Right, but
hotel.
it's quite a bit of money from
Occupancy.
Buellton for advertising for our community.
Unfortunately, we don't have any control over the contract.
But we
No,
can
but we could let them know.
talk to the board. And I think we can
Absolutely.
I mean, this is,
Updated.
yeah,
Staff can put together a letter for the mayor's signature regarding if that.
thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Any other comments? I wanted to add on, get clarification on the weed issue, because it went by the 246. They're still growing on 246, and I thought that was Caltrans. That's why I thought you were going to tell us, rather than staff.
It depends on which area on
Well,
246.
the overpass and the corners.
That is
and
on-ramps and
Caltrans.
Caltrans. The areas that is part of the Valley Gardner contract is like on the west end, like from Lalata-ish to Riverview Drive, and there's a portion on the east end as well. Areas that the city has improved,
Right.
those are ours too.
And they're not overgrown. It's the
The
Caltrans.
interchanges, we have put in a work request, and one of the four corners has been worked on.
Right. And I noticed that. and
We
the others,
routinely put in a work order request,
Okay.
several staff.
Maybe at SBCAG, if you would
I will, we have a meeting
invite them
next
to
week.
come
I will
down
bring
and
it up.
have a weed pulling contest. Good. Thank you. Council items. Anyone have any burning issues?
I just have one.
Yes?
And I mentioned it to Mark earlier. The historical plaques, the historic
Yeah.
Buellton Historical Society is putting together plaques. We have one up at Ellen's Pancake House already, and one at Red Rose Court, and there are two that are going up on city-owned property. And I just want to make sure, since we're hoping to get these plaques up and having a ribbon cutting, that this will come back to the July meeting.
Yes, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you've been sent me a copy of the
And I've been in touch with the Historical
Steve.
Society president, Mr. Samhain, so the plan would be to bring it back at the first meeting in July,
Thank you very much.
and we'll have it ready to go then.
Thank you.
Okay. Any written communication?
No, sir?
Committee reports. Economic task, or the Visitor
force.
Bureau Economic Committee met on the Tuesday. That was Election Day, and I wasn't there. So I have nothing to report.
The Economic Task Force met last week, and the two subjects were the Visitors Bureau contract and the status of Avenue of the Flags. And one of the things we decided that we would do a dry run of the presentation that will be made, or we won't do it, the city's going to do it, and the Economic Task Force is going to sit in and see how it goes, and hopefully we'll have constructive comments so that when it gets to the public, we have a good presentation.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for the reports. Any business items?
There are a couple.
Oh. Like 9? Thank you. Consideration of the contract for renewal with the Buellton Chamber of Commerce for the operation of the Visitors Bureau. Glad you're back from vacation.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Our existing contract with the Buellton Chamber expires on June 30th of this year. The existing contract is provided as an attachment, and as part of the contract, if you remember, the city provides 20.83% of its TOT to fund the Visitors Bureau. The task force has been meeting to discuss a new contract with the Chamber of Commerce, and task force members Vice Mayor Bauman and Councilmember Elovitz have been meeting with Chamber of Commerce representatives to help focus on the details of a new contract, including the amount of future funding. Staff is seeking direction now from the full council on any changes they would like to see in the new contract to help Vice Mayor Bauman and Councilmember Elovitz in their discussions with the Chamber. The goal of the meetings is to bring forward a new contract that meets the needs of the City of Buellton and the needs of the Chamber of Commerce for operation of the Visitors Bureau. This is an important contract, and staff and the Economic Development Task Force do not want to rush forward a contract. Therefore, staff would recommend that the existing contract be extended on a month-to-month basis until new contract is approved. However, staff would like the council to consider maybe a time frame, like 2 months or so, no longer than that, to get the contract worked out. Otherwise, it'll come back to the council, and that would be like the second meeting in August that we could have as a goal. The fiscal impact at this time is unknown. However, we budgeted $400,000 towards the Visitors Bureau just based on the existing contract. So that number would change based on whatever council decides with the new contract. That's just basically a placeholder we put into our existing budget that was approved. So staff is seeking direction from the City Council on a new chamber contract, and then also to extend the existing contract on a month-to-month basis with a time limit to the second meeting in August, if that's acceptable to the council. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Any question of staff before we have speaker slips on this?
I'd like to hear the public.
Okay, we have Kathy Vreeland. Are you ready? This is the order I have them in. Sorry.
I didn't know when you'd be ready for the slide.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. And thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to market Buellton and know that all of our efforts are put directly into Buellton. So everything that comes in, we put out to market only here. I've got kind of a laundry list I'll run through of just some of the things that we've been tasked with and some of the things that we've been able to complete in these last couple of years of the new allocation that we had received. So as you know, back when this came up, we actively went out on behalf of the city to educate the community and assist with getting Measure D passed. Measure D increased the TOT at that time from 10% to 12%. The increase was to be allocated to tourism promotion and economic development. The city tasked the VB with marketing, operating the visitor center, economic development, and the fiscal responsibility for event sponsorships and donations. The past 2 years have shown significant growth in Buellton. Occupancy and TOT have increased year over year. The VB has been able to, that's Visitors Bureau, sorry, I'm going to just abbreviate it. The VB has been able to develop a brand and a message for Buellton of Eat, Stay, and Play, which is carried throughout our marketing materials, website, and trade show display. Professional images taken in Buellton now reflect what we have to do here without having to utilize any stock imagery as we had in the past. We have developed a social media presence on various platforms where we engage with visitors, bloggers, and travel writers. Marketing efforts have been taking place on both domestic and international levels, either on our own or in cooperative efforts with local partners, regional partners, or the state of California. We've hosted fam tours, travel writers, and travel bloggers, which have all been another way to market Buellton as a destination. We have attended various trade shows which allow us to educate travelers and showcase Buellton as a destination. We have conducted research to better understand who is visiting Buellton and where they are spending. For example, the Visa View study that we had completed. Also looking at our Google Analytics. We've staffed the Visitor Center 7 days a week where we welcome people from all over the world and we share the best of Buellton and assist them with their overnight stay. And sometimes extending their stay to maybe more than 1 or 2 nights once they find out that we have more to do. again, putting all of our efforts solely into Buellton. For economic development, we've attended various retail shows hosted by the ICSC, where we've been able to research retailers who are expanding and meet with developers who may be interested in developing in Buellton. We've actively reached out to new businesses and worked closely with leasing agents and commercial realtors to compile sales flyers for vacant properties and/or available spaces for lease that we take to shows as well. We provide valuable information with regards to demographics, data, and other deciding factors to businesses who may be looking to relocate or develop in Buellton. We work closely with the city staff to reach out to property owners and/or tenants with regards to meetings and development opportunities. Also, keep in mind jobs are being created with the new development taking place, and a whole new tax base will be generated for the city through property, retail, and transient occupancy tax. We've put in place a seasonal banner program on the city light poles to enhance the downtown. We've reconstructed the Welcome To sign for Buellton and are now able to change the imagery to highlight activities and assets within the city of Buellton and upcoming events. With regards to event promotion, of course, we've been able to sponsor various events that welcome overnight stays. That's one of our items that we look at as a board, is to assure that it's something that will welcome an overnight stay before we think of a sponsorship. We've been honored to work with the city on the marketing of tourism and economic development, and we realize how important this industry is to the fiscal stability of the city. We also realize with all the new development taking place in Buellton, we need to continue our marketing efforts in order to increase our market share. We must remain visible and top of mind to our audience. We've got a lot of new development going on and a lot of new projects, and if we pull back now, we're going to lose a lot of that market share. So we really need to stay out front and on top of it, because we have some momentum going now and our feet underneath us. So we look forward to continuing our marketing efforts for the city of Buellton and would respectfully request to continue the current percentage of 20.83 we receive with a cap of $400,000 that's been allocated in the city's draft budget. And I would just like to thank you again. I'm here for any questions. And if possible, I don't know if I could come back up after comments have been made to address or clarify anything for the council. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Darren Biamonte.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and city staff. You have heard and will hear more tonight about statistics, dollars, revenue, TOT, sales tax increases, and whether or not there's any proof that the chamber is worthy of the credit and should take the responsibility. I have no idea. I don't have the expertise to know. I'm not here to speak about that. I'm here to speak about the other half of the chamber and their responsibilities, and that is as the Chamber of Commerce and what that does for small business in Buellton. I don't want it to be forgotten. At the end of 2015, I found myself unemployed due to a medical disability after a 19-year career in law enforcement. It was the only job I had ever held my entire adult life. It was the only thing that I knew how to do. I was unable to find a new career after several months of job searching and decided I'm going to have to start my own business. I looked at consulting, but with no business degree and no experience in running a small business, I had no idea where to start. I reached out to the chamber as a starting point, and they graciously offered to meet with me to discuss my ideas. After a nearly 2-hour meeting, I left with much of the information I needed to get started at looking at opening a business. It included information on small business classes in the area, small business association mentoring programs, licensing information, insurance information, marketing ideas and strategies, websites, social media, et cetera, et cetera. I knew nothing. I wasn't even a chamber member, but they helped me without hesitation because they want Buellton and its people to thrive. Thanks in part to the initial and continued support of the chamber, I have launched Buellton-based Central Coast RBS, providing safe and responsible alcohol service training to employees of businesses holding liquor licenses on the Central Coast. I respectfully request approval of the contract extensions so the chamber can continue doing its work to support Buellton, its residents, and its businesses large and small. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Peggy Brierton. Oh, I'm sorry. 11. My apologies, Peggy. Ron Anderson. headed out.
Ron Anderson, I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for that praise by that gentleman. I didn't expect that. We are the destination marketing organization of Buellton, the Visitors Bureau is. And I just want to point out that we have a new hotel being built, the Hampton Inn. We have the Village, that's going to be another 100 units. We have Cooley has just revived his spirits on building another 100 rooms on the Avenue. And each 100 rooms brings the city about $200,000 based on the split that we have now, each hotel, and that's based on a 65% occupancy when it's actually 74%. So I just want to point out that now is not the time for us to start pulling back on our marketing efforts. You got the Marriott spending millions of dollars. Flying Flags bought the Wonderful Days Inn, which is now the Sideways Inn. They're spending millions of dollars. So I think we need to continue marketing efforts in a way more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. I do not have any other speaker slips for agenda item. I have another speaker slip for agenda item 9.
Judith Dale, 381 Thumbelina. First of all, I would like to applaud the Chamber for what they do for businesses in Buellton and the Visitors Bureau. I did an analysis of how Buellton's doing with our TOT compared to other cities and unincorporated areas in the county, and Buellton's holding its own. It's doing just fine. Got enough. Because as you know, I have asked, how's Buellton doing compared to other areas in the county? And as this shows, we're about even with what other areas in the county are doing, so we're holding our own. And that's in no small part to what the Visitors Bureau is doing. But I think what's before this council is you need to decide how much money do you want to spend marketing Buellton. And I agree, now's not the time to cut back, but I think you need to really carefully look, is it the time to expand? I mean, with 2 new hotels coming on board, their funding is going to go way up. So what you need to decide is get away from this percentage, sit down with the chamber, do a strategy and goals, and what it's going to cost. So work with them on what it's going to cost. Do them a favor. I can't imagine that they have to go through their year and not knowing how much money they're going to get or how much money they're going to get in the future. Stabilize that, for heaven's sakes, both for your sake and budgeting and their sake. Make it a definite dollar amount, because then you know what monies you have for other things, because there are other needs in Buellton. Lighting on the avenue, our infrastructure, Avenue of Flags. I mean, I could go on and on. Don't get me started. But so think about how much money do you want to spend on marketing Buellton? And they've done a great job. Do they need more or less? I'm like Darren, I don't know. But sit down with them, get a strategy, get goals, and decide how much money it's going to take. Get away from this in this future contract. Get away from this percentage thing. Because you need to know how much money you're going to give them. You need to know how much money you have left over to do other things. And they need to know how much money they have and work out their strategy. Okay? All right. And this shows that Buellton's holding its own. In fact, I should give this to you guys.
I have some questions on that sheet. I don't know if now's the appropriate time.
Well,
Okay.
It comes back to council.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait till it comes back to council.
Okay, this is from the county. Here are the county reports, and this is online from the county. So I put the source down on the bottom.
Thank you.
And I have a slide that actually does the next 2 years as well. So,
Okay, that's where the slide is. You ready for that?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
And this is
Thank
more
you,
for the
Judy.
council and the public's benefit to kind of graphically see what's happened the last prior 3 years.
Can you go through the,
Can you explain that
Or-
more? I agree.
or
I can-
Carolyn
go
will do
through it.
that.
So what we've done here is we're looking at, for the 2013-14 fiscal year through present, so the last three, to this fiscal year and the last two before that, total of 3 fiscal years. We're looking at total TOT revenue that the city received. That would be on the blue line. So number-wise, for 15-16, we've estimated that to be $1,850,000. In 14-15, we did receive $1,830,000, and in 13-14, we received $1,600,000. So the next, let's see, then we have VB revenue. So what did the city pay to the Visitors Bureau? That would be in the rust-colored, the dark brownish red. And in 13-14, we paid $334,117, and we paid in 14-15 $381,261. 15-16, we expect to pay about $385,000. Then we have the Visitors Bureau expenditures, which are in the green, and you can see there that those are a little bit less than the revenue they received. So we took a look at all 3 years, and then any amount that was left over, that would have been surplus. So we've taken a look at that. So 13-14, about $224,000. 14-15, almost $336,000. And 15-16, almost $372,000. So we're looking at overall surplus of about $168,700 overall. So that would be collected surplus over the past few years. So what we're also seeing is that in 13-14 that's where the highest surplus was, and that's when they were just getting started, and we had a lot of discussions that I was here to listen to, and they were seeing how they were going to spend that money. So in 14-15, the surplus went down by about half, so there was about $45,000. 15-16, there's very little surplus, so they're spending most of that money in this current year. We looked at the Visitors Bureau's audits to verify all of this and check this, and noted on there that, you know, the TOT increased on February 1st, 2013, the 12-13 fiscal year, from 10% to 12%. So these fiscal years show the full 12% increase. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And just one of the percentages on top of the bars is the percent that the TOT increased from the prior year. And if you notice from Ms. Dale's thing, 13.6, and that's the one big jump. And then it's estimated at the end of this fiscal year gone up about 1% or so.
From 13.6.
No, if you look, it's very
from
close.
fiscal year 14-15.
There's
Yeah.
hardly any change.
what's it in 14-15 in the rust bar, which is the revenue? How much is the revenue for 14-15?
So the Visitors Bureau revenue, that would be the rusty bar. In 14-15, $381,261.
And what were the expenses?
$335,800.
Okay, and then the remainder is surplus?
About $45,000.
And that's on the bottom of the graph.
Okay, the surplus is on the bottom. And then for 15-16, I don't know if it's actually closed out yet, but what's the best numbers that we have? What were the expenses?
Yeah,
Or what was the funded amount, and then what were the expenses?
So the Visitors Bureau revenue from the city, what the city paid was about $385,355 are expected to pay. And the expenses that the Visitors Bureau are expected to incur are about $372,000.
Okay.
So the surplus is about $13,000.
Okay, and the previous year was about $45,000, right?
Yes.
And the previous year from that was 109.
The first year. The first kind of major year where they received the full 12%.
Okay.
And these are numbers provided, you said audited numbers, so there's no question, they're real numbers.
Yep.
Okay.
Except for the estimated, those are real numbers too. We used our best information, which were checks issued, and as well as what the city knows we've paid and what we've received so far. So those numbers are very real numbers that we feel confident about. They're just not the audited numbers, the 15, 16. All the other numbers are audited.
And the total surplus for the past 3 years is $168,678. Is that correct?
That's what we're coming up with.
Okay. Kathy wanted to come back, but do you have any comment?
No, sir.
I think hearing this input, Kathy, would you like to either respond or add?
No, I just wanted to address a couple things. So in recall, this is where it gets confusing because we're always at 2-month pay. So, the city collects it and we get it 2 months later. So we actually collect the TOT from the months the city collects it, May through April. So it's not a calendar year, it's not a fiscal year, it's kind of its own 12-month cycle. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
So we operate on a fiscal budget ourselves, but we're collecting from May through, May through April, I believe it is. So I don't know if that makes sense, and so I've got to double check those numbers. But also, percentage increase, so in looking at that, and also keep in mind this year we've dealt with the Marriott under construction, so our inventory is down a little bit from what we normally see, so that will affect the occupancy and TOT as well. And then surplus, just bear in mind we had intent for some projects that are not completed. We've talked about the kiosk and the highway banner system, and so there are some items that's meaning to be directed at but has not been spent yet. So that might mean that's kind of explaining some of that surplus there. So some of the projects that have not been completed but have been in our budgets, but the highway banner, I don't know how that's going to end up. So it's been quite a feat.
So really, the word surplus might be a little misleading.
It might be a little misleading. Kind of an allocated project fund, if you will, or not fund, but an allocated project number. So just, I wanted to clarify some of those numbers, but thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have any other speakers on this item before we bring it to council for discussion? Yep.
Okay. I guess I wanted to, and this is helpful because as Darren brought up, there's only, he didn't have any figures, and this is good to have because it's all consolidated in one graph. So thank you, Finance Department, for putting this together for us. I wanted to go back to last week and the week before, because I had initially volunteered to work on a new contract for the chamber, and I had also asked Dan, and we have met with Kathy and Ron once at the Visitors Bureau site, and then I asked for a task force meeting, and we all met again, along with Mark and Carolyn, for the two items being the contract and the avenue. Well, I had also mentioned, or had said, that as part of my services that I could probably look at my agency and see what kind of pro bono help we could get, because I have access. It makes sense to use professional assets, and I actually started talking to my boss, who is also one of the partners and owners of the agency, about a month ago, before I actually volunteered services. Anyway, after our Thursday meeting, I talked to him, my boss, about where we're at, And my concern was at the budget, and I wanted to tell you, the council, this is how he addressed it. He said that he's been working as a strategist for this agency, which is his company, and some large world-wide agencies for about 35, 40 years. And he said that so there were numerous examples that he could describe where clients have asked the agency to come up with a strategy, a marketing strategy, but they hadn't been willing to provide any kind of budget. So invariably, they'll make the presentation and the client will say either one of two things, that, well, we don't have that kind of money, despite we asked you to put something together, or, well, you know, what else could we do? We have more money for it. So in his estimation, and this is from the Thursday meeting that we had, I had asked for some kind of budget. I didn't get a consensus, and so I think now is a good time to bring this up to council. We're looking at numbers right here. I think that there's enough information for us to come up with a budget. If we come up with a budget, then we can go forward and have constructive contractual talks. And as we discussed in our first meeting with the chamber, that we want to create a contract that is a business plan, strategies and costs. And that would be, with a consensus, that would be brought back to the council and presented as the contract. The business plan would be the contract. But we can't do that without a number or some kind of ceiling number. So this information, I think, I mean, this is for you guys to look at. And what I see is, that first year in blue, it doesn't show how much percentage it went up from the previous year, but that's when the 2% started kicking in. They were collecting 2%, and I thought it was pretty high. I think it was 19.8%. You guys?
Right.
It was 19.8%. And that was with 12 months of 2% additional TOT, is that correct?
The additional TOT came in February, so it would have gone to 12% from March, April, May, June, probably 4 months.
Okay. And then the next year, I thought 14 to 15 was even higher, but I was wrong.
And Councilman Verovitz, just to let you know, Ms. Dale's percent, I think
accurate?
that would have the numbers you were looking for on the prior years.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, obviously in the first year, 13-14, that the 20.83% was given, the amount spent, and I didn't ask for that, what was the amount of money that the chamber got, and how much were their expenditures?
So you're asking for 14,
13-14.
13-14. The city paid to the Visitors Bureau $334,000.
And they spent?
$224.
Okay. So, the biggest bang happened, it looks like, in 14-15. And the expenditures were, from the previous year, were over, from what I can see, is over $100,000, $110,000 in expenditures. There's obviously a lot of reasons why that went up, but just looking at the numbers, I can see, okay, there's $100,000 additional. So 13.6% is pretty damn good. The next year was almost, about 38,000, 37,000 in addition spent. There was a total of 372,000 spent. And so we're talking about, like I said, it's about 40-some thousand from the previous year. So that's a considerable amount, but I only see the percentage go up about 1. So why is that? Well, I don't know. Nobody knows, but all I know is that...
Well, it was also mentioned about the, like with Marion, for instance, it's going through
Get rooms off the market, basically.
Yeah, rooms
for
around the market,
renovations.
about half of them actually.
And we didn't have a lot of new rooms coming
During the
on
construction.
online as well during that period.
Well, I'm just, then,
Like that.
you're saying that doesn't account for new construction?
Well, no, just rooms came off the market, so.
Yeah, there's no
when you have
rate.
rooms off
Oh,
the
when they
market-
did the renovations?
Right, renovations.
Okay, so that had, see, so, all right, well, it'd be nice to have the numbers for that, to see how much it was impacted. And I guess, does anybody have a quick assessment that they could use?
That's a whole hotel, but I think.
Yeah, I don't have the actual number, Leo. I was just over there today, in fact, checking out their new rooms. But they're only running at about half capacity, and they've been that way for a while. So it's, and now I know Days Inn is down as well. So there's a lot of rooms under renovation there as well.
And that's reflected in the 1% increase from the
So,
1 year to this year.
If we had full
So-
hotels to work with, that might increase more.
Okay, so the absence of rooms is why it dropped so much, or why it didn't go up so much.
Right.
Okay. What I did, or what I'm looking at, I'm thinking is drawing an average between the 3 years, which, and I'm looking at the expenses, $224,000, $335,000, and $372,000. You know, you can't have, obviously you can't have a marketing plan without capital. I think these three figures give us a pretty good idea of the range that has been spent historically. So I'm looking at it as an average. We haven't gotten down to details in sorting out the strategies of the past 3 years, where the money's been spent. We do have a breakdown, but we haven't looked at specifically how that money was used, and how a business plan, a marketing plan was based on it. I think for the city to take an active role as a client, and they should be representing themselves in the construction of the contract, is a very positive thing for the city, because the city's the client and the city should be driving it. And that's been my experience the past 10 years with Evans Harding Young ad agency. The client always drives it. So that's a good thing, and for us to come up with a new contract. We haven't done anything like that before. So I guess the next thing is to ask council to consider a ceiling. That's what I'm asking for. What kind of ceiling they want to put on the contract negotiations. And, you know, I'm looking at expenses, and then I'm seeing surplus. I think when we discuss going to contract negotiations, we should do a solid business plan that takes everything into consideration, but I don't see any reason why there should be a surplus on top of it. And any kind of, if you're talking about any kind of income, that should be part of the contract, not, right now there's surplus. That's the way the contract has been constructed, the old one.
But is that surplus, or is that commitments to?
Well, actually,
It's
there's nothing in, the city has not asked for anything specifically. And we're giving no, there's no specifics in it.
There are lists of things that had to be accomplished.
Well,
But
that's
they have
something
a
for us,
list.
that's something for us to work out in the contract. What I'm saying
was
is that
the yearly contract.
the expenditures, what I'd like to work out is the expenditures should be the contract. And however we want to work those expenditures, it should all be there solid, not a percentage anymore. We should have, just like we do with any of our other contractors, a number that we've agreed on for a year's services. Does that make sense? We don't do percentages with any other vendor. They provide, we negotiate numbers.
I think we could do a percentage up to a cap at a certain number.
Well,
So if the market took a dump,
right. Well, in any of the, speaking for the Visitors Bureau as the vendor, and if I was in their shoes, I'd want if we're talking about a cap, then I'd want to be able to depend on that cap.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And then, based on that, if things start going, if the TOT, for instance, doesn't rise like we expect,
Right.
well, we may have to eat that, what doesn't come that we've projected. And so the next year, this is a good point for looking at the contract for the next year, and we can make adjustments to it based on what kind of budget we have to work with, and based on also what's changing in terms of our needs, to market Buellton. So I think it's a year-to-year contract, makes a lot of sense. But even though, Dan, your percentage with a cap is actually a good protection for the city, I'm just wondering how much it puts the vendor at unease, because they can't.
Depend on a number.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea of a
I
contract.
think on an annual type evaluation for the money, then it's probably not as important as it would be in a multi-year contract.
Yes, absolutely.
I think one of the key things that was brought up tonight, and Judith, you hit it succinctly, how much do we want to spend to market Buellton? Buellton is a dynamic. Those of us that were here in the oil shortage when traffic stopped on 101, there was a real scurry, and people, hoteliers reached in their pocket, rented rooms at loss on the books to get the business. You weren't here for that, but other communities were. That same kind of paradigm could happen. And this with getting, having the task force is one thing, but having a meeting of the managers of the Visitors Bureau need to forecast what they see coming. We're fortunate that they are out melding with the industry. I think that's one of the biggest advancements Buellton's made in the last 5 years in the breadth of exposure that they've had to the marketing. They tell us they think it's affecting the end game, how many people come here and spend money, and that's what this is all about. The fact still remains, I'm not objecting to the process. I think everybody is surprised. Just as things go up, they will go down, and we said at the Santa Barbara County Visit Santa Barbara, I think they're forecasting 9% loss. Either Santa Barbara or one of the compilation of the agencies, they're seeing their TOT falling because they've peaked where the tourist wants to come. The tourist is changing their mind, and how we market ourselves determines. You're in advertising, so you know that people don't want to keep going to the same old place, and so they're remaining new and in touch with. And I think rather than saying, well, here's how much you've got to spend, you say, tell us what you need, and we'll decide. This sign situation is taking a life of its own, and tonight it moves, into a different venue, and the city. If the city is going to do that, then that's fine. But I think when it first started, it was assumed that it would be a function of the help from the people that market our city. So I think we just need to stay flexible. And I know there was a lot of people that were worried, but we have a lot of people that save money for a rainy day. And I think just to have perhaps an account that would allow us to bank some money for capital improvements. We probably could do some things that the industry, we've never had an opportunity to look at because we haven't had excess funds for that. So I would not want to just slam the door and say you're going to operate at this amount. Before Buellton Incorporated, that's exactly how the county treated us. They said, you get this amount of money. If you don't like it, it's okay. You don't have to take it. We'll keep it. And that was not a good thing for the community. So I appreciate the comment, but I think that we have to have, I think we do have professionals, and I don't need to get, I hope we don't get all caught up in, well, you have to have a marketing degree, or you have to have you have to be have a doctorate in cash management or anything like that. The people that come and stay, having a visitors bureau on the Avenue was a fabulous improvement. We're right there where they can come in, and it's a little tiny sign. I think it's going to do nothing but grow with enthusiasm when people want to come in and see why you're doing or what's going on here. And you know, I lost my faith in the sunset ads, but I knew that was what marketing was all about for so long. Was got to have an ad in the Sunset magazine because that's the only thing people read, and that's not the case anymore. So I think the cap will go a long way to get consensus on all sides, but I would hope we don't stifle the enthusiasm of marketing of the Visitors Bureau, listening to what the customers are saying. They're out there saying to other people, why do you visit City X? And they bring it back and they kick it around, and we're lucky to have people that will sit and do that. We're not paying for that. That's all the brain trust of marketing that we're blessed to receive. And so I know it seems like a lot of money, but so does the TOT. And I think the hoteliers, you know, they balk a little just on the side. I don't think they don't voice an opinion, but they're our collection agency, and they're, I dare say, oftentimes they don't net what they collect for us. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Well, I agree with you there. I don't think I made too many friends when I suggested Measure D, but it certainly has helped the city of Buellton, and I hope it's helped the hotels and the other resorts in town. First of all, I truly appreciate that you have you've done so much work on this, Leo. This is kind of above and beyond, and truly appreciated. And I like your idea of a set amount. I really had the percentage in my mind with a cap, but I can understand what you're saying, that it's important to our Visitors Bureau that they know what they have to work with and go from there. I do want to remind council, a couple things. First of all, we've got our T-bid where they're working with every city in the valley, and Buellton still looks like it's kind of getting the short end of the stick. And our Visitors Bureau promotes Buellton alone. They've also been tasked with economic development, and that's something that's really growing in this town. And I don't know if we can look at those numbers and figure out what economic development costs would be. They go to these shows, the ICSC, and they really work hard to promote business coming to Buellton as well as tourism. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to come up with a number. I think it's a great idea, but that's my concern.
Well, let me respond to that. The numbers are there on the chart to look at. I mean, that's the history.
That is tourism and economic development, yeah. But is that going to change our economic development?
What do you mean when you say economic development?
They're recruiting businesses. They're going out spending money to try to draw businesses to our town.
That's part of trades, going to the trade shows and conferences.
Well, it's a multi-level area of doing that. I mean, there's many different ways in which it goes down.
Well, I'm talking about funding, that there are expenses tied to the conferences and the trade shows, and that's one reason I asked for Carolyn's group to put together a sheet of all the expenses and start grouping them, so in contractual talks we could start looking at where the money is being spent and for what services it does. Okay. Because a lot of the time going through the checks, something would say economic development or would say program services. And I think we talked about that meaning, and I didn't know what it meant. For instance, there was $17,000, I think this was 14-15, and I think it was program services, and I had no idea what that was. And as it turned out, it was payment for the rent on, was it all the billboards? Okay, well, program services, I don't know how to interpret that, but when you tell me that that's for rent on billboards, well, that's media. You're buying ad space. And so that's part of an advertising budget. And then what that does is just allow us to look at how the money's been utilized, and where it needs to go. If you want to keep those bulletin boards, then you have to keep paying for that space.
You got a budget. Huh?
So obviously the expenditures are real numbers. That's what's been spent. And the most that's been spent is the last year. And what I'm asking is that, that based on all the expenses, to base a ceiling on that. And, if you average it all out, I haven't averaged with the new number. I would just had a projected number. But if you average it out, maybe you could do that.
So you're averaging out what the VB expenditures?
Yes.
What they've spent. So that, for the 3 years, it's about $932,000.
What's the average?
So the average is about 300 something, 310.
Okay, so that's something to work from. That's a real figure. And I would ask the council to look at that, because we're not just making stuff up. That's based on real expenditures. If you want to go up, consider going up. If you want to go down, but somewhere, put a ceiling on negotiation.
I can see your point. I can see how that could be critical if you had runaway expenditures. But when I'm looking at this chart, it seems like consistently the expenditures are right there, just slightly dip below the revenue. I think if we were to anticipate that would get out of hand, or the expenditures would go skyrocketing for some crazy reason, then I think that we would have a problem on our hands. But I don't know if we can anticipate that that's about to happen.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Okay, well, if you're looking right now, the revenue versus expenditures.
Right.
Expenditures are running very closely alongside the revenue, slightly.
The last year,
slightly below.
I see that. Because the surplus was only 13,000.
I mean, the last 3 years, where have we seen the expenditures shooting above the revenue?
There's a total of $168,000 in surplus over the past 3 years. So I think that's significant. And
over revenue?
Yeah, over expenses. It's surplus. It didn't go into expenses for carrying out the contract specifically. That's how I see it. The expenses are what paid for all the marketing and promotion and trade shows.
And there was some left over that they had allocated for certain projects that didn't occur during that fiscal year and just carried over.
Carried on.
And they have topics that have been continued simply because of the time it takes to put a program together versus continuing what they're doing. They don't.
Payments are due.
It gets cycled back into it.
So it's and I mean, most people are looking to do more, not to do the same, except for government services.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. First of all,
and I know we're going to have Kathy come back, but maybe that would be one of the things you could be thinking about, the ideas of things. I've sat in the room and listened to you say, we're talking about this, or we saw that, and then the next time around you've said, we've vetted that, and it doesn't seem to work for our business plan. So just with that given, sorry, before I forgot it, I went.
One thing I do appreciate seeing the graph here, and one thing I like about the conversation we're having is that I think everybody's in agreement now that our investment in our Business Bureau and Chamber of Commerce is working. It's obvious it's working, and I've heard conversations in the past where that was, there was some doubt cast on that. And I think it's very obvious from what we see here that the investment is paying off. And in another way, it wasn't so long ago when people would say, "Where are you from?" And I'd say, "Buellton," and they'd kind of look down their nose at me a little bit. Yeah. And now, places I go, other VBs, or when we play bocce, other communities, other business members, "Where are you from?" "Buellton." "Wow, Buellton's really happening, isn't it?" And so it's just apparent, I think, across the board that all the efforts we're making and the passion from the Visitors Bureau and the Chamber is really paying off, and I'd like to see that continue. So we're talking about the numbers a little bit here, and I know, Leo, you're talking about an average, but what I see is something a little bit different than what you see. What I see is kind of closing in on that $400,000 number. And there is some reasons, I think, particularly that first year, the Chamber really had no idea what to expect in terms of revenue. And so they were a little cautious. Yep. And they, in fact, I think I was on the Chamber actually at that time. So I remember the conversations about being extra careful not to overspend. You're committing to projects and investments in marketing, and so you don't want to overcommit. That would be the biggest mistake you can make. So we were a little bit cautious that first year, and so I think that's a deceiving number. And then as the money started being spent, you can see the payoff. So what I see is two things. I see us closing in on that number of 400,000, and I also see more hotel rooms coming online. And as you know, the larger company you have, the more marketing you're going to spend.
200,000 for every room.
And so I would personally be hesitant to commit anything less than 400,000. I don't think there's any reason to commit much more than 400,000 at this point either. So for me, that's kind of a number that seems to be sticking out at me more so than an average.
Along that line, then, perhaps the contract should have a fluid variance if you can show cause why you would like some more. Because the community thought they were that money would be put aside for improving Buellton, and we're clearly doing other things rather than just for the visitors. We're giving community services along with, when we make a service for the visitor, the community gets to use it also. So it is an
well, look at that blue line. I mean, there's money coming in. I mean, look at that blue line.
And we just have to be, hopefully, and we'll be talking about this once you go down the road of bonding. I'm reading all the time cities that can't pay their bond debt because they dreamed up something that never happened. We seem to be happening and developing, and it seems like if that were a sawtooth chart, we should be worried. But it seems to be leveling out. I know what you're saying, but I don't want to say that if someone shows cause why we should invest in a program or an event, I would like us to be flexible enough to say, all right, we can do that. I just didn't want to lock up.
Okay.
I'd like to hear from Kathy a little bit on what she thinks is a number, if she has an idea.
Could I ask Carolyn a quick question? Sure. Real quick? If you took fiscal year 14-15 and 15-16 expenses and averaged those two, what would it come to?
Those two would be, that comes to about 400, let's see, 335, 330, that's just 336, and 372 is 810. So we're looking at about 350.
Okay.
Average.
So we're going somewhere between 350 and 400 then. That's what we're looking at. Okay, thank you. That was just my question.
Just to move this, we ask Kathy to input a little, because maybe she can shed some light other than.
Yeah, and then I have some suggestions on how for the council to move forward for Vice Mayor Bauman and Councilmember Elovitz for further negotiations.
Okay.
I think Dan addressed a lot of stuff. He was on the board that first year, and that's what my comment was going to be. That first year, again, we were being very cautious, and I know I reported to the council that same thing. We were cautious on where we were going. We didn't know what that total allocation would be, so we didn't come up to the revenue that was generated. Therefore, in the next year's planning, we did look at some of those bigger projects that we could put some of that money to that was carried over, which has still been on. That's partly that highway banner thing that's taking all these years to try to figure out and do, and we may redirect that. So that would come in a future plan that I would then present. I think we're happy with the number 400. I think you're going to see it go over that in the future. So if we were to continue on this percentage without a cap, I think it would go over 400 with the new hotels coming on. So I think you're safe and we're happy. If we were to carry on with the percentage and cap it at 400, or if it's a straight 400, however that might work, I think we're very satisfied with that and could definitely come up with a great marketing plan for Buellton and utilize some of the resources that are out there. So I don't know if there's any other questions. But Dan, again, you touched on a lot of it. And again, he mentioned the blue line. I can't help but look at that too. It's pretty obvious of what your investment is compared to what you're receiving. So it's a good number.
That blue line is made up of 12% of tax, right?
That's what this.
So it's not. I mean, there's not a direct correlation between that line and how much the expense is.
Basically, that blue line is what the city's keeping in the general fund. That's showing the income the city, yeah, that's what the city receives.
What I didn't see is, I'm not sure, well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, that's fine. But I think that's what it's indicating. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's the total
But subtract
TOT.
the subtract the what we give to them. So the blue
Right.
minus the red.
Correct.
Is what the
Right.
city nets.
We give them about 1/5. So that line, if you divide that into 5, you'll see.
20.83.
Any other, Kathy?
I think I'm fine, unless you have more questions for me. Thank you.
Judith presented some stuff, so I think if you want to fine tune or add to it or take something away.
You know me, I can't sit back there. What you need to do is get together and figure out the goals and strategy. You need to be involved in what you want to happen. I mean, you're laying it all on them. Do you want a banner over 246 or not? Do you want, more marketing in a certain place or not? For heaven's sakes, take some leadership in helping them decide. And with that, then the expenses come out. If 400... TOT, and one of the reasons I did this chart is to see how we're doing compared to other cities. And we're about holding our own. Okay? Are other cities tripling the amount they're spending on marketing? I don't know. But you should find out, because really TOT depends upon, obviously, marketing, but it depends upon the economy, and it depends on how many rooms you have. There are a lot of factors other than just marketing. Okay, say you spend $400,000. At $400,000, how much should your TOT be? It should be about $3.2 million to break even. If you spend $400,000 to improve TOT, you need to bring in $3.2 million to break even. We're not anywhere near that. Now, do we need that much money? I don't know. But for heaven's sakes, find out and decide how much you want to spend on marketing. I personally feel $400,000 is a bit extreme. Is more marketing going to bring in more people? Because for every dollar that's spent, it takes $8 for the city to break even on TOT, 12%. Okay? So if you're spending $400,000, your TOT to break even should be somewhere around $3.2 million. So is spending more money going to raise our TOT? And that's what I wanted to see when I did this. I think 400,000, personally, I'm talking personally, but I don't know, because you need to sit down with them and figure out your goals and your strategy. Then you know how much money it's going to cost. Be involved in that.
I just want to say something, Dale, if you don't mind, real quick, Judith. I understand what you're saying, but you have to understand also there's a difference between leadership and micromanagement. How they've been able to do this with under $400,000 and raise revenues like they have blows me away. And I'm glad that I never told them what they had to do before, because this is what they do best. So I've been very impressed with what they've been able to do. So, you know, we like to listen to what they have to say. We like to listen to what you have to say here. And I think you bring up some good points, but I think it's also very subjective if one were to sit here and estimate just exactly the exact number that they'd have to come to raise the number that we're talking about.
Yeah, well, it's just math. It's plain math, how to break even. They have done a great job.
It's forecasting.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
retro looking back to what's happened so far.
Let me just shine the light on, they do business enhanced economic development, and we
they've done great.
Have a parameter for that. We don't know. A person comes in and buys an industrial site and does a widget that catches fire and goes viral. They're making money, they're paying taxes. We have revenue streams from business income, from sales tax, those sort of things. They have a two-pronged, they have a bifurcated idea of bringing new businesses in and selling rooms to visitors, and thereby attracting people to come to Buellton. So the hard and fast 3.2, if you take out if we just went down industrial way and taken the last 10 years, what kind of revenue has been enhanced in this valley? You know, we talk about every dollar invested returns $7 to a community. Everybody's talking about that quantum. I think that helps to satisfy some of that 3.2, because that number doesn't equate with me that we should be doing 3.2 million.
No, I understand what you're saying,
So
but
I think it's not, the sky isn't that dark yet.
no.
Could I interject? One of the reasons I wanted to get involved with the contract is because we're a client, and I would like to have more input into what the goals are, and look at
Exactly.
how the goals are being implemented. And obviously, I've got a professional background and resources to draw from. It can't hurt. The other thing is, I don't see, what I'm thinking is if we go into contract negotiations with a limit of, you said 2 months, I don't see why it's a bad thing to try and conserve money and make an efficient business plan that we feel is going to be effective, and try to not spend what we project as all of our TOT. I don't see anything wrong with it. You know, the average, you said, between those 2 years is $350,000. You know, that's not such a meager amount. That's pretty damn good, I think. And if we could come up with a solid business plan in 2 months and save the city $50,000, I don't see anything wrong with that. As a matter of fact, if we want to put those custom lights in on Industrial Way, right now, there's no money we have to invest in it unless we're going to, and tell me if I'm wrong, Mark and Carolyn, unless we don't have any money for this next year slotted that we see that we can put into that reserve, that account that you've already set up. There's no money at all. $50,000 would be helpful to start putting something towards that. At the same time, it's a pretty good sizable amount that we might be able to make work really well. The other thing is, I'm just asking for a year. At the end of a year, we look at everything and how everything's worked. If the TOT is really going up, we can make adjustments then. I just don't see why we have to shoot all the money, everything, all our surplus this next year, when it gives us a time, really the first time, for the city to be involved, and that would be primarily the responsibility of myself and Dan to work on a contract. I mean, if we can't work out a consensus by the end of 2 months, then we have to come back. But that would be my goal, and I don't see why we couldn't do it.
So why don't we move forward with the 350, just to have them put together? Let me just finish my statement and then...
It's just, we're blocked here.
Oh. If we move forward with the 350, ask them to come up with a budget, you and Dan look at that and see whether that's going to work or not, or whether it needs to be higher. And then if it does need to be higher, then when it comes back for approval, and I don't think we should let this go more than 2 months.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, they've got a budget to plan, they have commitments, and they can't have a
Absolutely.
freeze. So in the interim, they'll be getting their 20.83. And then if they can come up with a budget, you guys look at it, you're a businessman and you're in marketing, and if you can look at that and it doesn't make sense, then go as high as the 400 to make it work, and then bring it back to council for approval.
Well, we probably, I mean, if it get 2 months, we can look at a lot of things.
But Mark, you said you had some suggestions?
Councilmember Sierra just took my suggestion.
Oh, I'm
So-
sorry.
No, very good. Then that was my suggestion is have the two council members work with them within a certain budget, come back by the second meeting in August, and
If 350 does not work, then raise it up to 400.
Well, let me go back. We're not just as part of the contract negotiations, we're not just talking about reaching a certain number and then walking away.
Oh,
We're talking about structuring
that's not what I'm
whole
saying. You two will be
contract.
involved with the,
coming up with the marketing plan,
you
marketing
guys look
business
at their
plan.
budget, you guys look at their marketing plan, and you decide if that's going to be enough to take care of our economic development and tourism. And if it's not, then see where you need to increase it and come up with a really fair number.
Carolyn, what was the number for last year?
The number for last year?
Yeah, just for last year.
That was,
This
the
year.
city paid to the VB 385, 555.
So that's my only concern, is investing less when what we're doing seems to be working, so.
Well, I as a client, I want to get involved in seeing exactly what's going on. Because like I said, I started looking at numbers, and I brought up that example already about the signs. You know, the billboards. If we get, as long, and that's where,
Community identification sign.
that's next. But that's where we started. We haven't gone any farther, the four of us, if you're going to be involved in it. We haven't gone any farther in looking at a breakdown of the expenditures and talking about how it works, and then in the case of the first year, how it doesn't work. So it's not just a number, it's looking at, there's a number of things. Are we getting the most bang for our buck? Do we need to go out? Should we look at other services? Is our strategy solid? There's a lot of things. If we can come up with a good business plan and a solid strategy, and I would say if you could do it for less, even better. But our ceiling at this point would be 50. What I'm trying to clarify is that if we don't come to a consensus, it's not just the money. It may not just be the money.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Okay,
I'm
well, I just want to
we're gonna go
clarify
with
that
the
for the
baseline number.
for the council.
And to move this along, I really believe we're not here to whittle down. I think we have consensus not to go above 400. And the understanding is, but
That's not
I
what it
think
was. Ed,
I
I'm
think the
sorry.
last thing,
350.
Well,
that is your number.
right.
The consent, there was 400, the people that are providing the service. When you bring in your people to negotiate, you don't tell, when you're doing your business, you don't sit down with the client and say, we want you to give us the most for the least. You wind up doing the best by getting the right individual. When you want to set here and say, this is what we want you to do, take it or leave it, they have performed. The city is mega positive. If we were negative, it would be a whole
I
different
disagree.
story.
We're not telling them to
You're
take it or
okay.
leave it. We're talking about going into negotiations and talking about how the marketing plan is structured and helping together what's going to structure a marketing plan. And as a client, we're going to do it because we feel it works. That's not telling them take it or leave it. And also, if you're an agency and you're representing a client, because there's all kinds of services out there, you want to get them the best deal that you can. You're not doing your responsibility to the client if you're not getting them a good deal. So that's part of it too. And I'm not saying taking anything away from them or what they make at all. I'm saying that
it does sound like that.
That's not. It's not. If you want, I would say let's give them a 2% increase in what they make already, because we've already given a 2% increase to our
we found
employees.
out. We
I'm talking.
came up.
Let me finish
We went
first.
to the.
Let me finish, please. What I'm talking about are the services, and if we feel that this, we have to come up with a structure of what the strategy is. And they've done a lot of work on that, and that's why we're going to talk, and we're going to explore what they're doing. We're not telling them to take it or leave it. It's not that at all. This is going to be a back and forth discussion of what's been going on, what they've been doing, what seems to work. Maybe we should explore other avenues. It's not that at all. You make it seem like we're going to come there and slam the door in their face. This isn't at all. It's a cooperative discussion.
That's
an arrangement.
I'm still on line with the cooperative discussion. We talked about 2-month period, not going beyond 2 months, leave everything the way it was, come with a contract within 2 months, and let the $400,000 be the ceiling simply for the mechanics of it. They have no. They're talking about that forecast being realistic.
Yeah, everything.
I think the council needs to decide.
Every indication is TOT is continuing to grow. So I don't see any reason to start cutting back on a number that is already we're already spending more on. So I think 400,
Their budget,
475, 400 is a good number.
their budget for 2014-15 is $352,758. That's the budget that they have for
was for a year.
for
So 15,
14-15. Yeah, well, they can't do 15-16 until we give them a contract. So why don't
No,
we
that's
start with that
16-17.
352,750? Right, but this, right, 15-16 isn't,
So
well,
15,
I
16
don't
was
have,
370.
I don't have 15-16 here. I just-
1516 is 385, 355.
Okay.
So that's why I'm thinking 375 to 400 is just a more.
We have a comment from Kathy, and I'd really like. I think we've got our 2 months.
We'll actually get more.
We're not having the meeting tonight. We're having the discussion about the meeting.
No, I want to talk about the number, and that, if we put the number high as we want to go, we're obviously going to come up with a plan that's going to incorporate it up that. I'm saying that we may not need to go all the way up, and it seems silly for us not to consider what's an effective contract, that maybe we don't have to go that high. We haven't had that discussion yet. I'm saying let's target something lower, see if we can come up with a good contract at that number. If we can't get any, consensus, then we'll come back
So
to
the council will authorize a budget between 350 and 400 with you and Dan sitting down with them and working out a budget that fits into that category.
I think that's fair enough. And I also want to be, if we're talking about realistic, I don't think it'd be necessarily realistic that they might go up to 400,000 in the first place. I mean, they might stay well below that anyway.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what
we want to find out.
The microphone, we'll wrap this up. You had some comments.
Just really quickly, and
we need-
I understand everybody's concern, and we do the planning and see what we're going to do that year and where we're going to go and what that might look like. And I know for us, I understand what you're saying with an agency and a client, and sometimes that might be a little different than the council and the destination and the tourism bureau who's in the market and doing this also. We kind of have the knowledge. I know a client might have the knowledge of what they want, possibly, with the agency anyhow. It'll be confusing if I keep going, but what I'm saying is you might not know what our lead market is or who's our #1 market internationally out there to go to. So as far as direction can maybe coming in that regard from you to us, we might be better coming to you with what markets we want to go after and what's out there. So that's where the conversation comes in, that we can help.
And that's what our conversation will be.
And so that's why I'm thinking if we come with a plan, we discuss it, and it's in that range or whatnot, I think that might be the best thing. So just trying to help with that than trying to tackle one thing. So, sorry. Thank you.
No, you don't have to be sorry. I think we've discussed this enough for now.
Well, I would like to propose that we move forward with looking at a range between 350, what did you say? You said
350 to 400.
to 400,
To see what,
with a timeline of 2 months to come up with a consensus on a new contract between the Visitors Bureau and the city, represented by Dan and myself. And we come back to council after that. And if we can't get a consensus, then we're going to have to...
And including the month-to-month extension until we get there.
Right. Write that in? But we need to make it work. When we come back, we should have a consensus.
I get that at work all the time.
No, it is.
So you've got the month-to-month.
Recommendation.
The month-to-month, make sure that you mention the 20.83, so that
Yes.
we know that continues.
The existing contract would continue month to month until the new one is done, and that would include the 20.83.
And this will come back in August.
That is correct. And we can just have a consensus, I believe.
Yes.
All right, so we have consensus. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Number L. I'm getting cleared. Ordinance 1602, an ordinance of the city.
Back to 10, the People Helping People survey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Here.
Thank you, Dave. Item 10, I went right from 9 to L. Consideration of funding request from People Helping People to conduct a motel residency survey. Mr. Brzezinski.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, myself and Councilmember Sierra have been involved with the Central Coast Collaborative on Homeless with meetings in Buellton to address the issue of homelessness, including transient persons living in motels along the Avenue of Flags.
Right.
And Dean Peleus and Jeff Schaefer from the Collaborative are here tonight. And one task that the group thought was worthwhile was a survey of the residents of these motels along the Avenue Flags to determine who's living in these units and whether or not the organization and other organizations could be able to help find a more permanent solution to their housing needs. So Dean Peleus from People Helping People indicated his office could perform the survey but would need funding assistance to do so. He has developed a budget, which is included as Attachment 1, and it's a total cost of $4,768. All tasks are to be accomplished on the listed budget, and they will do various surveys at different times of the day so they can catch people at home at these particular motels. The start date is anticipated for July 1st, and staff is supporting this request for a couple of reasons. First, it will help determine the status of the occupants residing in these motels and whether or not they are candidates for additional assistance to find a permanent home. And second, this could be the first step in transitioning these facilities into true motels and not long-term residential units. This in turn may assist in the development of these properties as part of the Avenue Flag specific plan. The budget, again, is $4,768. The city has adequate funds in our current fiscal year budget under our housing fund to cover the cost of this project, and this is an appropriate use of those housing funds. So we're recommending that the City Council authorize the city manager to allocate this money to People Helping People, conduct the survey, and both Dean and Jeff are here to also answer any questions from the council.
Thank you. Any questions of staff before we go to
Not to staff.
Okay, I'll go to Dean.
I have one, actually.
Oh, all right. Excuse me,
You
Dean.
mentioned about transitioning these back to true motel short-term occupancy. How did they transition away from that?
I don't know. They just did. They just did of many, many years ago, and that's been the problem. And we'd have to work with the city attorney on a transition plan because we want to make sure people who are relocated to get appropriate housing.
So there is an ordinance is already in place. Once somebody establishes that length of period, they're there. Is that correct?
After
Yeah.
60 days, isn't it permanent residence or something like that?
I think we're going to
It's just been going on, a little off top, but for long, such as Vintage Walk, when that went in, we took those down and ended up with a lawsuit, et cetera. So they have some rights if they've been there for a long time.
But we could pass a municipal code or ordinance stating that once that room has been vacated, it cannot go back to long-term, couldn't we?
So
Yes.
we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, and
That's
that
maybe
would,
got something for
and this
down
would be the
road.
first start for that, to do
Yeah.
something to
think
that
that's
effect.
the goal.
And Mark, where are the owners on this, the hotel owners? Are they working with the survey idea or not? Are they not wanting this to happen?
Well, I can ask Mr. Peleus that question. We're going to talk to the residents.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are concerned. They're the transients that need housing, not the owners of the particular properties.
Okay. Please state your name and address.
I think I forgot. Dean Peleus, 320 Dogwood, Buellton, California, and Chief Executive at People Helping People. We would never go into a motel and knock on doors without the permission of at least the manager, if not the owner. So once we get this underway, we'll work on the survey, and simultaneously we'll be notifying the owners that it's our intent to do this. We haven't notified anybody about anything yet until the City Council says this is something they desire us to do. C3H and People Helping People, of course, have an interest in housing these people in permanent housing. Motels are housing, admittedly. These people are not technically homeless, sort of near homeless. For many, there's actually families living in these motels, couples living, and the living conditions are certainly not anything that we would consider to be ideal. So we thought this is a perfect partnership. We brought it to the city manager. I can see that the city probably would have to enforce whatever ordinance they have on not backfilling into these motels. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in the same condition. You're going to have a problem with relocation expense, which is what happened with what people commonly refer to. I think the nicest name is tortilla flats. You'll find yourself in that same position. So, but we do have to find permanent housing, and it's going to take a partnership of this agency and perhaps Solvang and the county to make sure that we have proper housing. We've made some good moves. The senior housing that will go into McMurray, and of course Rona Barrett's project, the Golden Inn, those are good moves, but those are for seniors only. And we're going to need to take a look at family housing in the future. So this is not a short term. This is not going to be resolved in the next 6 or 9 months. This is going to be long term and require some vision on the part of the different agencies that are involved in terms of creating permanent housing for these residents. And I think we're going to find lots of seniors. We already have clients in these motels, and we'll also probably find, I know there's a number of veterans. I know that Jeff has done some door-to-door work with his crew in the past. His participation will be to provide a volunteer. We would never send someone door-to-door, and especially since we need to do some of this in the evening, we would never send someone alone to go knocking on someone's doors. It takes a little more effort, I think, than doing it once. It'll be 2 or 3 or 4 times to catch people in, but we expect to get, at least 80% of what we estimated to be the 80 doors that exist in the motels that are being used for permanent residency. I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have.
I think what you're doing is great, personally. I mean, right off the cuff.
Thank you.
I think a lot of those families could probably be doing better for themselves than living in a temporary type of location there where you have maybe one toilet for a huge family. And
no cooking.
And
supposed to be no cooking.
No cooking, exactly. That as well. You have situations where maybe there could be some mental illness as well.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing you'll find out. And if so, maybe they just need some direction.
And part of the survey will benefit People Helping People as well. As you say, it'll allow us to see what some of the needs are and maybe some of those needs that we can address with CalFresh in terms of extra food and nutrition and health care. And so there's a benefit, I think, there as well.
My question was regarding the hotel ownership. Do we know where they stand on this?
No, not yet. We'll find out quite shortly. As soon as we get approval, we'll contact them.
Well, that's a good question, and will you be speaking to our city manager, for instance, and letting us know the status of what you're finding out and how this is going?
Are you going to make a joke? Do I have to?
The report comes back
Yes.
to me.
But we're very good. We'll keep them informed as we move along. If there are any issues that arise, yes, we would let Mark know. If we run into a problem with a motel owner, I don't think we will, because again, we're not asking them to evict these people. In fact, that's the opposite of what we would like to do. There's no benefit to the city to have that happen.
No, I assume you've done work, your group has done work like this before. Right.
So I've been at PHP now for 21 years, so I lose track of the continuum of time. But I would say about 15 years ago, we had funding from First Five and from the Fund for Santa Barbara. We actually went door to door to about 110 homeowners, and we did actually a fairly extensive survey on health care and what percentage of income people paid for rent and those kinds of things. And that was quite successful. So we actually have done some door-to-door surveying. We do a lot of home visits. We have contracts with First Five in the county of Santa Barbara. We do a lot of home visits, so our people are used to doing that.
Well, I agree with Mr. Conley. It's a service that I don't know if it's ever been done before in the city, but I think it's timely and welcome to see what your group can do.
Thank you.
Quick question?
Yes.
Just a couple ones. The 80 doors that you figure are out there, is that every hotel,
No.
motel?
No, I think it's 4 or 5. There was a list that was attached to our proposal. We looked at the Google map of everything, the flags, and we looked at the motels/hotels that we know have significant long-term residences. You know, the only one that we left out was Red Rose Court. But like San Marcos, the Farmhouse, those are 2 of the 4 or 5 that are on the list.
And Red Rose is basically a residential apartment complex, not a hotel, so they're not going to be included in that.
I think San Inez, what I don't know what it's actually called, San Inez Motel.
The Farmhouse?
No, the one that's next door to what used to be a gas station on, what's that, 2nd? That's on the list as well.
There's a country something.
Country Inn. Country Inn.
And will C3H have any part in this, or is this strictly people helping people?
No, we partner with Jeff, and he's the one that said he'll be providing volunteers. It's probably Jeff. It might be Jeff. We'd love to have Jeff, but they're going to provide some volunteers to go with the staff person.
This is something I think our subcommittee can also meet on as we're going forward on this.
Terrific. That's a great idea. I appreciate this.
Thank you, Dean.
Dean, just
thank you, Mayor Ed.
Was wondering, have there been population censuses taken on that? Because it seems to me that when they do that, that is almost a door-to-door thing. So maybe
that's a really good question, and that's hard to know.
And the thing is also with the population census, if you find out that there's more than one family living in some of those
that's
places,
quite possible too.
Issues.
Yeah. Those are issues that we're not going to deal with for years and years and years. I don't know how many of you remember, but Solvang City Council member who was an attorney who worked for us for legal aid, we were running into this from time to time where someone was living in substandard housing. So the question is, do we talk to the city attorney of the city and have get the landowner to do something who then evicts the person from there, and there's no place for that person to go? So sometimes we kind of do that, take down the information, but we're, unless it's a major issue with children, we're obligated, obviously, if there's neglect or some other situation, abuse, we report that either to CWS, Child Welfare Services, or to Adult Protective Services. We've had some situations with seniors. So if there's a major health issue, we would have to deal with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we, is Jeff, did he want to add to it? Did you? You're there. I didn't know if your cars broke down
Well, you
or came to the meeting.
Why not? Yeah, Jeff Schaefer. I am the coordinator of regional coordination for, it's changed around sometimes, primarily now San Ynez, Lompoc, and Santa Maria. So I like it because it's going to get valuable data, because we can't do anything without the data. I like it because it's going to help people helping people resource, because they're kind of the experts. They have funds available to bring resources to families and people in need. And it helps us with a long-term plan based on the data we find. As you want to do renovations, we can begin to work with families to get them and individuals into a better housing situation over time. Because the worst thing you want to do is all of a sudden have a bunch of people have to scramble for housing based on, we don't know what their income is, we don't know these kind of things. If we want to appropriately house people, we have to know that information. And then it's going to develop these relationships over time, I think, too, with people and families who are living there, so we can, originally we wanted to do this through volunteers, but after talking with Dean, we just felt like the city needed to be engaged and professionals need to be engaged. And ultimately, though, we could also rally more volunteers to assist in different ways if we needed to, once we kind of develop trust. So I see it as a huge win. I'm a Buellton resident, so looking forward to working in my own community as well, as much as I work in Santa Maria and Lompoc. So, does that sound good?
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. Bring it back for discussion. Any staff additions?
Yeah. No staff additions, and I think this would be a motion with roll call since it is financial.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And the motion is being made
Mr. May, I'd like to make this motion. I'd recommend that we authorize the city manager to allocate $47,6740 to People Helping People to conduct this hotel survey. And I'd also like to thank Dean very much and Jeff very much, because I've worked with Jeff for, 3 years now? And he's a very valuable asset to our community.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Sierra.
Aye.
Councilmember Elevitz.
Aye.
Councilmember Connolly.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bauman.
Aye.
And Mayor Andrusik.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Dean. Good luck.
Good luck.
You can see Carolyn about the request. Yes.
No.
I like the cash cards. Cash cards were a
Got to
great
be
idea.
traceable.
Thank you, Mark. We'll write up a little
You
contract.
didn't bring the lunch pail. Well, now we are at item 11, an ordinance 1602. Ordinance of the City Council, City of Buellton, revising Title 19 zoning of the Buellton Municipal Code 16 ZOA-01 relating to Section 1904.170E.6D. Are we going to be adding another letter to this now? Community identification signs and making findings in support thereof. This is the second reading, but and I'm sure you'll bring the audience to reason why it's new to some.
Correct. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, you introduced and held a first reading of this ordinance on May 26th, and at that meeting, the City Council directed staff to make the following changes to the wording of the ordinance: that the sign be owned and controlled by the City of Buellton, and that the prohibition on digital signs be deleted since the city will be in control of the sign. The City Council did not want to preclude the use of future technologies. These changes have been incorporated into the attached Ordinance 1602, and staff recommends a second reading and adoption of the ordinance.
Thank you. Any questions of staff before we go? Have a speaker slip on this? Nope. Seeing none. Peggy, we're at 11. At 8 instead of 8 and 11.
Good evening, Mayor Andrusik and council members. Peggy Brierton, I'm a Buellton resident. First of all, I want to thank you for making this sign city-owned and controlled. Unfortunately, that does not take away the threat entirely of a digital billboard going up. this council and staff may understand the concerns of the community. And you may say that no digital billboards are going to be built. However, councils and staff change. And until the wording of no digital billboard is in this ordinance, a digital billboard is still possible. Now, amendments are changed and added all the time. Amended to, if you were to put back in, as Planning Commission recommended, no digital billboard, at a time when there is more technologically friendly ways of displaying that would be more of a rural type of setting, small town setting that would be applicable for us, then you can amend the ordinance to reflect that and move forward in that direction. Just that leaving with not having in there no digital billboards, scratching that out as Planning Commission requested, just leaves it open for a digital billboard. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers that wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council.
I had a question. I apologize. I was not at the last meeting, and I've been busy trying to catch up at home and at work, and I haven't had a chance to listen to the meeting. I'm curious. Why did the council? Why did you guys decide to delete the prohibition on digital signs? I'm just curious what the thinking was.
I think they probably brought that up, so I can answer that.
Okay.
Basically, what I had pointed out was that I had been reading and seeing new technologies that are coming available that are actually able to, digital is just such a broad word. There are technologies now where you can produce signs that are actually less invasive on the environment and with lighting, with mediocre backlighting, where you don't have to illuminate it from outside. I didn't want to preclude the use of those technologies for a sign coming up just because people are afraid of the word digital. And so because the city was taking ownership of the sign, and presumably the city council and the city staff at any given time would pretty much reflect the intentions of the community, I thought it was a pretty safe bet to go ahead and include that, and at the time everybody agreed.
There was also a big presentation because, I've not been a big fan of the digital sign either, but I think we've been led to believe often that it's some big flashy type of Vegas operation or something you see for the Oxnard auto world as you drive through there. And if you research it, you'll find that, again, this is with advanced technology, a lot of the new digital, or I should say lighted signs are very subdued to the point where even you can almost not even tell which is which. So moving on with technology, sometimes it could be indicative of a sign that can be changed quite easily, but not changing every 8 seconds, maybe even changing every month because it has some sort of electronic capability. So putting a moratorium on digital or lighted electronic, that sort of rhetoric could almost be harmful for people in the future who are trying to improve on the aesthetics of whatever their street signs might be.
Very near future, because there's cost involved in having to go out and change the signs, strip down all this painting and put a new one up. If there's a technology that's going to be agreeable to everybody, and friendly and environmentally friendly, and more efficient, it just seemed to make sense.
Is there any way we could put that in there? Because
well, we did by making it under the city control.
Let me tell you that I think, and I cast my remembering of this, and I appreciate the Visitors Bureau's here. I never knew them to introduce the kind of literature that bombarded the residents of this town, drawing huge boards that would keep you awake at night. We had people saying that in public forum. Mm-hmm. It was a little overkill. So I don't think you ever submitted anything. It was the talk of it, and it grew a life of its own and took off in all directions instead of the right direction.
And see, I guess that's what concerns me, is that there was such a huge brouhaha with Buellton's going to be putting up digital
Yes.
signs, that for us to say that we're not going to prohibit it, I'm just wondering if there's some other way we can phrase it, that the city does not preclude use of future technologies, and just leave it at that. I don't know. I know that we've had such a huge reaction with the digital, and I understand what you're saying, that they've got stuff out there that's coming in the immediate future that is not the big digital thing that people are worried about, but that's what they're going to see
Well, we
here.
discussed this, any sign that goes up, whether it's some sort of advanced
Right.
digital
Nobody's
technology
gonna
or
build
anything,
something without
it all
it
has
being
to go
vetted.
through planning. It all has to,
Right.
no matter what the sign is, it all has to go through planning. So it has to be agreed upon by the planning department, by the city council, and then the city has to agree to it too, because they own it. So
Okay.
it seems like it's a worry that's not really.
Okay.
There. Leo.
Mr. Mayor, I was also swayed to consider, well, so if you have the right kind of technology, and none of us know what that is, you might be able to
Because the future hasn't arrived yet.
Right, you might be able to incorporate that. But two of my concerns are, one, there's been so much discussion about this being a messaging sign that I think we've lost what is supposed to be the number one reason for having a community identification sign, which is it's a marker of who you are. And we've gotten all this discussion about messaging, and it's not supposed to be something about messaging other than you're a Buellton, and this sign tells you a lot about us, and it stands out, and it gives a good sense of class about what the city's about.
Okay.
The thing I was comparing it to when we discussed this last time was you go drive up north in Paso Robles. They have, it's not a billboard. And matter of fact, I was asked.
Monument.
It's a monument, and I don't think it doesn't say anything about a billboard. It just says size. Okay, so that could be anything, any kind of structure. But theirs is a monument, and it's got a little strip in there that will tell you some current information, and that's about it. And that's the only thing I was thinking of. But I really think that we've had so much discussion about messaging that it's left the real purpose of the sign in the dust, and we've forgotten about it. And the main thing I want to see is something that really represents what the community's about. And if you want to, I don't know how to structure the language, because digital is, that's not I don't think that's a good term. I think that should be stricken. But I don't know what language to put in its place. And also that there be an immense amount of dedication to the sign for what it should be, which is an identity marker for the city, and a very small percentage about messaging. If we drop the messaging altogether, I don't think that's a bad thing, because I'm really more concerned about what may appear that's going to be the community ID. So I kind of agree. I agree with you. I just don't. If you want to keep some messaging in there, I'm not sure how to craft it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I apologize for taking your time, because I should have listened to the tape. But I was just curious, because digital was such a nasty word about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just was hoping, I understand the future technologies, and there's some great stuff out there, that maybe there was some other way to put it.
Yeah, I just don't know how you. Yeah, if there's a new technology might be, I don't think it's going to say digital. It's going to have some other description to it.
Well, I think the technology will be a video of how it looks, and rather than a one-dimension drawing. That'll be a big help for people. So where can we see it? I've always admired Paso Robles one, it's up on a hill. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like 2 acres of land. You go down to Thousand Oaks, they have the same thing, but it's on a 50 by 100 foot lot. Not nearly as impressive. So it's in the eye of the person going 75 miles an hour past it. So that's 55. Okay. May we...
And I guess I would make a motion to approve ordinance 1602, an ordinance of the City of Council of Buellton, revising Title 19 zoning of the Buellton Municipal Code 16-ZOA-01 relating to section 19.04.70.E.6.D, community
As stated
identification
previously.
sign, and making findings in support thereof.
I'd like to interject something here, because I thought that we were talking about changing the language in digital.
They changed the language last week.
No, I mean,
Yes.
no digital sign.
We deleted that provision based on council direction.
Technologies.
The motion includes that change.
The motion includes the ordinance wording that's in here, and that included the city
Ownership.
controls and owns the sign, and then the prohibition on digital was stricken. That was council direction on the first reading.
Right, what I'm saying is, you said, you're right, the prohibition is stricken so that it's allowed back in.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm saying that from the discussion we were just having here, it sounded like we're talking about striking digital again and trying to come up with a different
There's
language.
nothing, the digital's already struck, and so Vice Mayor Bauman's motion is to adopt the ordinance wording that we currently have in the second reading, with nothing changed. Is that correct?
That's my motion.
I just hope to goodness that in the future, that council will understand. I think we've made it pretty clear that we don't want big digital signs.
Well, possibly they do, just not flashy, billboardy. Digital's just... Oh, anyway, I made a motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we have a second?
No.
I'll second.
All right. Call the-
Okay. Vice Mayor Bauman.
Aye.
Councilmember Connolly.
Aye.
Councilmember Elements.
No.
Councilmember Sierra.
Aye. Aye.
And Mayor Andrusik.
Aye. Again, nothing will be done without full vetting, and I think the agreements with whoever is doing the construction will be clear.
And I think Councilmember Elovitz and I have made our feelings kind of clear.
I think everybody
Yeah.
agrees. I mean, I don't think anybody disagrees. It's just...
It's just that it is a technical issue. I mean, I thought we made a good, by changing it to ownership of the city was a huge move.
That's good.
No,
I agree. The owner of the, I thought that was great.
I am concerned about the messaging component, but
The city controls that.
of course, like...
And it's no commercial, it's just promoting Buellton, and we can put up special
To
events.
Peggy's point, though, it's like, yeah, but what about 20 years from now? You don't know. But you can't account for that anyway.
But not only that, but also telling people 20 years from now how they have to operate from what we said back here.
20 years from now, they're going to be laughing at this conversation.
Probably.
Because everything's going to be digital.
Because everything will be digital.
And remember, again, the sign is not going to have commercial. It is
Yes.
just City of Buellton, and we can put up events that are occurring.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
I'm fine.
I appreciate the
Thank you all.
conversation. I didn't.
With that, oh boy, where's that? Sorry. You good?
You can have it.
City manager's report. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable
I
Mayor.
have folded it into here. Thank you. No,
Just a little update on the avenue. Ron Anderson and Irma set up meetings with several property and business owners, basically one south of 2nd Street, including Mother Hubbard's and Gino's and Quealy, and for the Country Lane. And it was very, very productive on what we're doing, and they actually would prefer to keep that little median back in place because it keeps their 3 parking spaces.
Really?
Mother Hubbard's too, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
They say it's not an issue now, and the
Okay.
parking spaces are more important, so we're looking at redoing that portion to accommodate it, and they seemed very happy that we could do that. So we'll take a look at it and then go from there. But it was very productive, and we're trying to get some of the other property owners to the north of 2nd Street involved, and so it was very productive, and got a lot of support for the plan that we have moving forward. So we had another oversight board meeting today because the state required us to actually have a resolution to ask to remove the successor agency. Then once they approve it, then we adopt a resolution by the oversight board getting rid of it. So
They're not requesting anything digital.
no, okay. So hopefully one more, Carolyn.
Thank God.
Hopefully one more. Fig Mountain's expansion is at the Planning Commission, their development plan next Thursday at the Planning Commission.
Big Mountain?
Fig Mountain, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, was Big Mountain.
Big Mountain, yeah. We're starting up our quarterly staff meetings, and our first one is going to have Chris Nielsen on our deferred comp, as well as the Sheriff's Department. Matt Delgado, we're going to get him back up here to do active shooter training for staff.
All right,
That's a
shooter. I like that. Yeah.
No, he's not going to shoot us. He's going to give us active shooter. If a shooter comes in, what we do.
Oh.
Active shooter.
I thought we'd be able to get some weapons and...
It's just called duck. Duck
Yeah.
and run.
That's basically it. What is it?
Issued a shield.
It's run, whatever.
Duck and cover. Run.
Yeah.
High five.
And remind you that our next council meeting will be canceled. There's a lack of agenda items, plus we have 2 council members who will be up in Monterey for the league conference for the executive meeting. We're still trying to put together the ad hoc committee for the library. That's hard to get everybody together. Library ad hoc committee?
I'm sorry, yes, you're still trying to get it together.
Still trying to get it
I know.
together. We've had people on vacation, and then we're going to try to get the county as well as Jessica from the Santa Barbara Library together. We are getting a new motor officer. He's in training right now, and he'll be up end of the month or so. Or that's when his training starts.
That's when his training starts.
We will be introduced to him?
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll make sure he comes up here to the city council meeting. The criterium is scheduled towards the end of August. I think it's the 28th.
I thought he said the 8th. I saw him.
I think it's the end of the month. I think
He said a date in
27th.
August. Okay, 27th.
Okay.
And our annual city golf tournament is July 23rd, so please note that down. We put little flyers in your inboxes, and that concludes staff's update.
We didn't have a discussion this year, and I just wondered, has the staffing changed, or how did our contract with the sheriff end up? Has that come to us? Has it been?
Go ahead, Carolyn, you can give
Yeah,
them a
there's no changes as far as our staffing with the sheriff, and it just increased just a very small amount.
0.3%.
Yeah.
So we basically budgeted enough to, plus we're going to get an additional $20,000 COPS money along with the $100,000.
An additional 28,000.
28.
And M&S, how is that going? I'm sorry, the RFP for city engineers, how is that going?
The deadline is coming up for any questions or clarifications by any of the firms. We've had Andrea send out a reminder email to all the firms on our list again, just reminding everyone that the deadline for that is coming up, and the proposals will be due shortly thereafter.
Now, where have we been advertising?
It's on our city website, and then we also sent it into Public Works Magazine. And as, well, at the previous council meeting when we had provided the update. No, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all we feel is sufficient right now, because before we even advertised and had the information posted on our web, we've already started receiving calls just from people picking up on listservs and those automatic.
I didn't see anything in the local papers, so but if it's in the trade papers,
No, it's not.
then.
Advertising something like that in a local paper doesn't get you anything.
Right.
They're looking at the trade papers and getting direct contact.
Thank you very much. Again, I should have listened to the meeting, huh?
And she,
Did you?
all right, with that,
All righty.
we're going, oh, I'm sorry, then, Sean, is it 1.5? When we're talking to people, we have a deputy and a half, 24 hours a day? Is that how they, we were always talking portions of a full staff per expense.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I believe the full-time employees, doesn't it come to 7.4 or something like that, 7.8?
To give the same as a 1.5
So,
all year because
yeah,
of vacation.
basically it's one patrol deputy per day, 24 hours a day. Okay, which actually equals, I believe, 5 positions. And then you have the extra position of the motor officer.
And that's the half.
So that would be different. I'd have to actually get the breakdown for you.
I appreciate that because it's a basic concept. I just want to be able to.
Correct.
People ask how many do we have, and I said,
They don't
well,
understand the
2
half.
weeks ago we had 25 in here.
When you have so you pay for basically a third of B. So it all comes down to portions. The same with a sergeant, and the same with a detective. Same with the senior deputy. But in real terms, it's one deputy per day, 24 hours a day, plus your added motor officer.
Okay.
And then a portion of supervisors and managers.
Good to.
I hate to make it convoluted, but then there's a portion of the AOP position, so that it's a little twisted.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. We have an announcement from our legal representative. Do you want me to read that, or do you want to?
I can read it. We're now at item 12 on the agenda, and that's our closed session item, and we'll also have a closed session item at item number 13. Item number 12 is conference with legal counsel on existing litigation, Terra Wine Company versus City of Buellton, and environment in the public interest versus City of Buellton. And item number 13 and that's pursuant to Government Code 54956.9A. Item number 13 is a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation 6-month review.
All righty.
And with that, we can go into closed session.
Thank you.